Welcome to Esoteric-Truth on Esoteric-Truth Radio. My name is Trinity, and the first thing that I'm going to present here is something that's controversial, something that's hard for many, many people to believe, and this may be an actual trilogy. So if you could just bear with me here, the first part will, of course, be some of the older sciences, things that have been going on for 500 plus years. This is about mind control, subliminal messaging, MK Ultra, Artichoke, Bluebird, you name it, I'm going to present it. For those of you who are not actually open to this, please be patient. Please understand that the things that I'm going to bring up here are things that you can actually research. If I bring up a book, I will definitely give you the name of the book. You can look up anything that I'm actually going to present today. You can find it. It's all readily available and easily accessible. You will have some pauses during this, and it's just because I have so much information to present that I guarantee you're going to want to stick around. But I do have a lot of information to present. I'm going to try to do as much as I possibly can in a short time. I want to give an absolute shout out to those that have literally been spending countless years trying to present this information. This is a hard subject for people to understand because we have so many others out there, propagandists, we have movies, we have television, we have all of those things. Those are the things that are controlling us, but those are actually the things that are telling you that this can't happen to you, that this never really happened. They want to push this stuff under the table, and I am here to tell you that it's out in the open, and it's happening to every one of us, including myself. I have absolutely no problem saying that I have at one time been susceptible to a lot of these techniques, and it's taken me many years to try to find out the essence of controlling a human being. And it's a lot easier than you actually think. I can't give their names out, so I will give their initials. MS is somebody that I would like to give a shout out to, and T 2012. There are a lot of other people, but I'm going to stick with those two right now because they were a huge part in helping me to realize that I wasn't the only one that thought this was a serious subject. The earliest evidence of mind control was a surgical procedure called trephining. And here they would cut a small hole in your skull. And if they thought that you were possessed by evil spirits or demons, this was an early form of lobotomy. You have to realize that there's no practice that's happening right now that has not been done or tried, whether it failed or not. It was actually tried over the last 500 years. Even something, and these barbaric procedures, by the way, are happening today. We just named it differently. That's a horrible habit that we all seem to have, and we don't know how to associate the two. Multiple personality disorder today would have been considered possession 100 years ago, and due to many, and I mean many, of the tyrants that were obsessed with power, that are currently obsessed with power, there's no greater power than to control a person. Many times we think that this is impossible. It is. How we treat our children, how we treat animals, we all have a natural trait of wanting to control one another or control our surroundings. And what's fascinating about that is that we are also easily controllable. It really doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a long period of time. And due to the practices happening for so long and a lot of the information that's hidden to the public, because this stuff, like I said, I mean, you could do a search, but you're going to find so many pieces of information, you're not going to know where to start. So this is how I'm going to help. I'm going to bring up certain things. A lot of these books are currently available. You can find the PDFs online. If it's a PDF, I say download it and read it. I'm going to bring up a lot of the, at least the older, more easily accessible links and or stories and or information. My first part will be about stuff that actually happened long ago. My second part will be what's happening now, because this stuff is happening now from from still people thinking that there's witches and, just a ton of shit, and then the last part will be how to help yourself to get out of it. I think that the reason why I wanted to make that the third part is because that's the hardest part for you to comprehend. But if I don't bring you the beginning and then the middle and then the end, I could take the third part and just say, oh, well, shit, we can't do anything about it. I'm not going to do that. I actually want the last part to be something that when you do turn on the television and you do turn on the radio and you open up a magazine and you want and you have a feeling of wanting something that you can't really pinpoint why you want it. I want to tell you how you feel that way, but who got you to feel that way? People have spent so much time, and I mean literally the horrific things that were done to humans on this planet. Forget what we do to animals, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't give a shit about that. What I'm saying is that forget what you think of the most horrific thing. I'm going to find a way to tell you it's tenfold. It's tenfold, and the further you go back, the worse it was. But that this is absolutely happening today. We're doing it and more or less in a pharmaceutical sense. We're drugging everyone, our food, every single. There is not one thing that I'm not going to present here that doesn't show you that we are literally on the brink of being under full control, and there's nothing that we can actually do about it unless we actually see the signs. Okay, I'm not telling you, something's going on in the air, so don't breathe, or there's shit in your food, don't eat. That's impossible. That's impossible. But if somebody actually tells you, I can tell you a way to at least diminish that, that thing that's going to actually, completely screw you up, then I'm going to do that. That's what I want to bring here. So please bear with me. I'm going to pause for a second so that I have all my links available. I want to make sure that I'm quoting everybody properly, that all the information that I'm bringing up, I have researched myself. I will bring the pertinent parts, the most important parts to the table. This is not to scare you. This is not fear-mongering. This is nothing in that sense. We've had presidents that have apologized for mind control. There's, I'm sure, at least one person in your lifetime that's a much older person that told you some stories that you thought were just unbelievable. That shit is real, and it's been real. And unless we actually say that we're going to at least be knowledgeable, screw it. If you can't stop it, that's fine. But at least, come to the fight with something. Come to the fight with something. Don't go to a knife fight, you know what I mean, with a pencil. Don't go to a gunfight with a knife. There's ways for us to actually prevent these things, and I want to be able to present that to you. This is going to be hard to swallow for a lot of people, and I get it. I absolutely get it. But you want some truth? Stay with me. I'm like I said, this is going to be a couple of parts, but stay with me on this. I promise you. After listening to everything that I am going to present, you will walk away with something. You will walk away with something. So, I'm going to pause for a second, get all my links out, and I'll be back in a minute. Thank you. Okay. I wanted to start with somebody who was very important in a lot of high-profile cases, such as the Patty Hearst case, and nobody brings her up. The Patty Hearst case, of course, was a famous case where I think it was a billionaire's daughter. She got kidnapped, and then all of a sudden she's on some crime spree. And that's where we get a lot of the terminology that we still use today, such as Stockholm Syndrome, where all of a sudden we fall in love with our captors, which, let me tell you something, is a real thing. And hopefully later on, you stick around, you're going to find out that we all have a form of Stockholm Syndrome. And we use it to fight each other. We want to go into the political paradigm, and we don't see that it's just one system with two different names. It's a form of division that teaches us that we have to choose a side. Picking a side or picking the lesser of two evils is still evil. That doesn't make any sense, but people have a tendency to follow it and want to argue about it. We spend a lot of time just literally dividing ourselves more and more every day, and it's not because we're born Republican or Democrat or gay or straight or religious or the non. It's that we're taught that way. And if people would just understand And it's not that hard, whether it's your parents that taught it to you, or you could be like Nell from that movie with Jodie Foster and be in the fucking woods your whole life. It doesn't matter. We are literally taught to be who we are today. Her name is Margaret Thale Singer. She died some years back, but I'm going to read you some of her terminologies and a short overview of what it is that she was discussing. It says, today's mind control of brainwashing in academia is commonly referred to as coercive persuasion, coercive psychological systems, or coercive influence. The short description below comes from Dr. Margaret Singer, professor at the University of California at Berkeley, the acknowledged leading authority in the world on mind control and cults. Coercion is defined by the American Heritage Dictionary as to force to think or think in a certain manner, to dominate, restrain, or force or control by force, to bring about by force. Coercive psychological systems are behavioral change programs which use psychological force in a coercive way to cause the learning and adoption of an ideology or designated set of beliefs, ideas, attitudes, or behaviors. The essential strategy used by the operators of these programs is to systematically select, sequence, and coordinate many different types of coercive influence, anxiety, and stress-producing tactics over continuous periods of time. In such a program, the subject is forced to adapt in a series of tiny invisible steps. Please listen to this. Tiny invisible steps. Each tiny step is designed to be sufficiently small so the subjects will not notice the changes in themselves or identify the coercive nature of the processes being used. The subjects of these tactics do not become aware of the hidden organizational purpose of the coercive psychological program until much later, if ever. These tactics are usually applied in a group setting by well-intentioned but deceived friends and allies of the victim. This keeps the victim from putting up the ego defenses we normally maintain in known adversarial situations. The coercive psychological influence of these programs aim to overcome the individual's critical thinking abilities and free will, apart from any appeal to informed judgment. Victims gradually lose their ability to make independent decisions and exercise informed consent. Their critical thinking, defenses, cognitive processes, values, ideas, attitudes, conduct, and ability to reason are undermined by a technological process rather than by meaningful free choice, rationality, or the inherent merit or value of the ideas or propositions being presented. How do they work? The tactics used to create undue psychological and social influence often means involving anxiety and stress fall into 7 main categories. Tactic 1 increases suggestibility and soften up the individual through specific hypnotic or other suggestibility increasing techniques such as extended audio, visual, verbal, or tactical fixated drills. Excessive exact repetition of routine activities, sleep restriction, and or nutritional restriction. Right there. That right there. Extended audio, visual, verbal, or tactical fixation drills. That's our 24-hour news cycles with the marquee going on the bottom. The constant and repeated words that are used by all news stations. There's plenty of videos that you can put in there and say, the media says all the same shit. And you can actually see them using the exact, and I'm talking about all over the United States. You will hear the exact same words used by people from New York to Los Angeles. News stations using the exact, same words so that they're so repetitive that you can't really get out of it. You can't. Or tactical fixation drills, like when we had the terror drills, we had yellow and red and green. All of that stuff is to purposely keep you fixated on fear. So every time they put it up, they put it down, they're like, oh, we're a terror alert, blah, blah, blah. None of that shit makes sense. All that is to keep you on a constant high and low. And when you do that, it goes into the next part, the sleep restriction or nutritional restriction. That means that now you're worried, you're terrified, you can't go to sleep, you don't know why you're scared. All of this stuff is purposely done, and of course I don't even have to get into the nutritional restriction because we already know where our food is going. Just the first tactic alone, every single one of those things is happening right now. All of those things are happening to us one by one. It's happening to us in a group. We share that fear. Right now, I'm bringing this up, and there's people that will be interested and people that won't. But all in all, we're still gathering to find out what the hell is going on. You know, there's people that are worried about the zombie apocalypse. There's people worried about the end of the world. There's people worried about the rapture. Everybody's worried. You know, we're worried about the Antichrist. It's always some shit. Worried about sunspots and alien invasion. I mean, what the hell? How the hell are we supposed to live, sleep, and do all of these other things when we can't get out of the worry zone? You know, you can't go and look automatically to the Love Channel. There isn't a Love Channel. You can find 500 things on TV. There isn't a Love Channel where it's just puppies and kittens in baskets and shit. You can't do that because that will take you away from the fear. They have to keep you scared, and you have to be scared all the time. Number 2, establish control over the person's social environment, time, and sources of social support by a system of often excessive rewards and punishments. Awesome that they said that, because our social environment is no longer family gatherings or places where we can all interact as people. We're doing it on the internet. We're doing it on Facebook. We're doing it on threads. We're doing it on posts. And the rewards and the punishments. That's right there. You write something and somebody either has a positive or a negative response. But it's either going to make you happy or it's going to piss you off. And here I'm going to finish reading. Social isolation is promoted. Contact with family and friends is abridged, as is contact with persons who do not share group-approved attitudes. Economic and other dependence on the group is fostered. I know I don't have to go into that. That is pretty much self-explanatory. Tactic 3, prohibit disconfirming information and non-supporting opinions in group communications. Again, this is what's actually happening all over the internet. This is what's happening. I've seen a couple of people that I know complain now that you can't go on certain news media sites anymore without logging in your full name and your email address. Now they want to find out if you're pissed off and you're like, screw the economy, screw the government, take this shit over, everybody's, bonkers in Washington. They want to know who the hell you are. They want to know how the hell to find you. They want to know where the discontent is coming from so they can shut that shit down. Rules exist about permissible topics to discuss with outsiders. Communication is highly controlled, and in-group language is usually constructed. Self-explanatory. Number 4, make the person reevaluate the most central aspects of his or her experience of self and prior conduct in negative ways. Efforts are designed to destabilize and undermine the subject's basic consciousness, reality awareness, worldview, emotional control, and defense mechanisms. The subject is guided to reinterpret his or her life's history and adopt a new version of casualty. Again, if they don't teach you either how to live, what you should be looking forward to, then they're not doing their job. There isn't one person, including myself. I would love to have better things and live in a bigger house and have all this other shit. That's fine. Having things is one thing, but us leaving out our basic nature, our basic inner nature, and our basic wanting to be a community, every time we take away from that to go for material things, it's easier for them to control us. That's why we're bombarded with commercials, bombarded with subliminal messaging, bombarded with movies that are just nonstop propaganda. Nobody's discussing the real issues. We're fighting about Jay-Z and the Illuminati and what's that shit I saw the other day? Dennis Rodman is going to... Who the hell told anybody that Dennis Rodman should be back into the news? He hasn't played basketball. He's played for this dude in North Korea. Are you fucking kidding me? This is what we need to be talking about? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it's a form of distraction. And for those of us that are listening here, if you're hearing my voice, that means you're tired of the bullshit. You no longer want to hear that nonsense. You know that even if you participate, even if you have a conversation at a dinner at your family's house this weekend, and somebody brings up the Dennis Rodman thing, you're either going to be for it or against it. Regardless, you're talking about it. And that's what they want. They want you guys to interact about nonsense. Because the real shit is right under our noses. It's right there in black and white. They need us to be distracted. Okay, sorry I told you this is going to be a three-parter, but I have to be who I am, and this is it. Okay, let's see. Tactic 5. Create a sense of powerlessness by subjecting the person to intense and frequent actions and situations which undermines the person's confidence in himself and his judgment. That right there is mainstream media. Right off the bat. Right off the bat. It's not even the communication you're having with other people. It's that it's constantly in your face. You know, this whole thing, if voting counted, they wouldn't let us do it. Are you kidding me? We can't control GMOs, but for some reason we think that we're the reason or not the reason somebody's in office? To me, that's fucking bonkers that people still think that that shit counts. It does not count. It's never counted. It's just another form of division. Tactic 6. Create strong, aversive emotional arousals in the subject by use of non-physical punishments, such as intense humiliation, loss of privilege, social isolation, social status changes, intense guilt, anxiety, manipulation, and other techniques. To me, this brings up the hive mind when we're all supposed to agree. You know, I'm supposed to agree with you, you're supposed to agree with someone else, and then when we go outside of that and we say, no, we don't want to listen to that nonsense. I don't want to talk about sports all day. I don't want to talk about politics all day. None of that shit makes sense to me, and what does make sense is that it's there to divide. I have to argue, you know? I don't want to tell people why I don't want to talk about it. I just don't. But I don't have to explain, I don't have to label myself, and I don't have to talk to people that label themselves and give themselves higher status because they read, you know, the newspaper every day. That doesn't make you more intelligent. Having a college degree doesn't make you smarter than anybody else. You know, I'm not knocking anybody who went to college, but you can't walk around and just read from a textbook that you don't know where the information came from, and that the place where you learn how to memorize this shit, you don't even know who wrote it. So to me, you have no real say. Okay. Tactic 7, and this is the last one. Intimidate the person with the force of group-sanctioned secular psychological threats. For example, it may be suggested or implied that failure to adopt the approved attitude, belief, or consequent behavior will lead to severe punishment or dire consequences, such as physical or mental illness, the reappearance of a prior physical illness, drug dependence, economic collapse, social failure, divorce, disintegration, failure to find a mate, etc. Don't have to get into that at all. Every single one of us listening have dealt with that. All of us. And this isn't just the government, and this isn't just your neighbor. This is at churches. This is at every self-help conference. This is at every pyramid scheme. You know, oh, you can't find a mate. It's because you're not doing it. No, nobody gives a shit about that stuff. Well, obviously, that's my mistake. Everybody cares about it, and this is why those people are making billions of dollars. These tactics of psychological force are applied to such a severe degree that the individual's capacity to make informed or free choices become inhibited. The victims become unable to make the normal, wise, or balanced decisions which they most likely normally would have. They have been unknowingly manipulated by these coordinated technical processes. The effect of these processes can be an even more effective form of undue influence than pain, torture, drugs, or use of the physical force and physical and legal threats. How does coercive psychological persuasion differ from other kinds of influence? Coercive psychological systems are distinguished from benign social learning or peaceful persuasion by the specific conditions under which they are conducted. These conditions include the type and number of coercive psychological tactics used, the severity of environmental and interpersonal manipulation, and the amount of psychological force employed to suppress particular unwanted behaviors and to train desired behaviors. Coercive force is traditionally visualized in physical terms. In this form, it is easily definable, clear-cut, and unambiguous. Coercive psychological force, unfortunately, has not been so easy to see and define. The law has been ahead of the physical sciences in that it has allowed that coercion need not involve physical force. It has recognized that an individual can be threatened and coerced psychologically by what he or she perceives to be dangerous, not necessarily by that which is dangerous. Law has recognized that even the threatened action need not be physical. Threats of economic loss, social ostracism, and ridicule, among other things, are all recognized by law in varying contexts. Why are coercive psychological systems harmful? Coercive psychological systems violate our most fundamental concepts of basic human rights. They violate rights of individuals that are guaranteed by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution and affirmed by many declarations of principle worldwide. By confusing, intimidating, and silencing those victims, those who profit from these systems evade exposure and prosecution for actions recognized as harmful and which are illegal in most countries, such as fraud, false imprisonment, undue influence, involuntary servitude, intentional infliction of emotional distress, outrageous conduct, and other torturous acts. These, like I said, are things that are right there, out in the open. It's fully every single thing that I just mentioned, at least one thing each of us has had to deal with. And when we're surrounded by these people, it's even more stressful because we know what's going on. We know the reason why people act the way that they do, or at least I'm going to present that. And when you start seeing that they have us, they got us right now. They're not going to let go. Out of everything that I've read over all of these years, and a lot of the stuff that I'm going to present later on today, all of these things have one thing in common. And it's that those who are trying to get out of that system are the minority. I think we're always going to be the minority. I don't think that even if we got 1 million people, that we would be able to make a difference. I know that sounds really fucked up. But in all actuality, when you think about this, people cannot accept that they can be taken advantage of. You know, we're always going to bump into those people. Oh, that shit can't happen to me. I know when something's happening. No, you don't know shit. When you realize how long this has been going on, we're literally being lobotomized right now. And you don't even have to go to the doctor to have it done anymore. You know, they did their work. They found out how easily we can be used. I'll be bringing up Freud, Edward Bernays, books. Everything that you can possibly think of, I will present it all, and it's going to be out there in the open. So just bear with me, and I'll be back in a second.